right on the cusp, as we
I'm sure Scott Reynolds will have something to say about that.
Expertly segue to our next guest.
Yeah, how'd you like that?
Bucs and Lightning. You caught my attention. How are you?
Yeah, that was a dual segue.
That was
Tim handed it to me. It was a double reverse. Tim handed it to me, and then I handed it right to you. How about that?
Drop the ball like Jalen McMillan did.
Oh, you had to go there.
You had to ruin it, Tim. Come on.
Golly, we're on such a roll too.
I know,
but he's right.
So were the Bucs.
That's
to that end
today, Tim. Damn.
To that end, Scott, I don't know why, but I've just been obsessed with going back and watching the Washington Redskins.
He did. He is punishing himself watching that wild card game from last year.
Yeah.
Lots of missed opportunities there.
Yeah. It's funny. We forget, right? That's why I go back and watch it. And I was like, boy, how the F did we lose this game?
Yeah.
How the hell do we, and I got, by the way, I have answers.
Okay.
A terrible pass defense.
Yeah.
Lord.
Really bad.
Which was part of the issue all year long. Wide open middle, guys wide open in the end zone, big 3rd and 4th down plays, guys wide open.
Yeah.
The Bucs got out coached schematically, outplayed, and they missed opportunities in crucial moments.
Yeah. But the Bucs defense also held Washington to 2 turnovers on downs in
they did.
2 of their 8 offensive series.
It's kind of nuts because if you look at what Washington did the next week in Detroit, they just completely dominated and dismantled the Lions in their own den.
Yeah.
And so, I hate, listen, every Sunday is different. And I don't know that there's even if you ask coaches, there's not a lot of correlation from one week to the next because it's just different
injuries, matchups,
injuries, matchup, weather, opponents, right? Motivation, things like that. There's so many different X factors in a weekly basis. That's what makes football so much fun on any given Sunday, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you look at how Washington, which was a team that was like the Bucs, averaging 30 points per game, just light up the Lions defense and also got a bunch of turnovers too, right? They really kind of victimized Jared Goff. But it kind of makes, and I don't want to excuse Todd Bowles and his defense too much because they did not force a punt. They did not get off the field on 3rd downs. They didn't create any takeaways. But what they did do is they held Washington to 20 points up until the last second field goal, and they got 23. That was the winning points right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad for the playoffs, especially against the team that's averaging 30 points per game. You're holding them for up until the last second, 10 points below their average. Conversely speaking, the Bucs were averaging 30 points per game, and they got held 10 points below their average. So it was a really close game. And you can skew the stats any way you want to make it look really, really bad for the Bucs or make it close. And I'm not saying either way you skew it is wrong because there's a lot to work with there, right? As you mentioned, Tim, they did stop them on a couple of 4th downs, right? But the thing is they didn't stop them on 3rd downs and they didn't force a punt.
That's right.
And you had the Jamel Dean injury that came in, and I can think of 2 plays that Josh Hayes allowed. Yeah. The touchdown on 4th down, Terry McLaurin, that was huge.
Yep.
And then
32 was very visible in the last quarter.
There's no doubt. And then I want to say it was a 21-yard catch and run by De'Ami Brown on 3rd and 6, where I called it from the press box. I turned to my PR crew and I said, "This is Josh Hayes is it's coming your way." And it was. and that was the play that allowed them to go, I believe, across midfield and closer to field goal range.
You should have told Bowles that. Not your PR crew.
I mean, first of all, I don't have a direct line.
We need to fix that. We need to fix that.
Todd
that needs to be addressed.
It's coming your way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, like that's, I don't want to say that's on Jamel Dean, but Jamel Dean wasn't in the game. For all of Jamel's faults, I think every Buccaneer fan out there would rather have Jamel Dean in those instances than Josh Hayes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like disparage Jamel all you want. I'm not necessarily in that camp, but if it makes you feel better, fine. But don't tell me you wouldn't rather have a healthy Jamel Dean in that situation rather than Josh Hayes. You would. So don't lie about it, right? And then again, on the offensive side, I mean, the Bucs offense was kind of held in check. It was not that it went anywhere close to the 37 they dropped on Washington the first go round, right?
Well, it's because they didn't have the ball, and this is where you get in trouble looking at points given up. The reason the Bucs defense was awful, not because they gave up 23 points. It's because they gave up 37 minutes of possession time.
Right.
And the Bucs offense only ran 44 plays.
Do you have the game book handy?
They had 8.
The Bucs had 7.
Bucs had 7. Washington had 8.
Right. How many times did they score in those possessions? How many?
The Bucs?
Yeah.
I think they scored on 5 of their 7 possessions. 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the offense was fine. They only ran 44 plays.
Fine.
Baker was 15 for 18.
But you took a lot of field goals where you needed touchdowns.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Touchdowns win games. Field goals only win games when it's a last-second field goal.
So game management was key. And we say all this to say what derails the Buccaneers next year. Like what the roster we both agree is a championship roster. Like they've added we said last year, I think we're a year away. Probably need to add an edge rusher, maybe get a little bit better in the secondary. What did we do in the offseason? Added an edge rusher, got better in the secondary.
I agree.
And so this team is ready. It's
so to
ready
answer your question, what stops the Bucs themselves and injuries, really? Because this is a team that, and say what you want, Todd Bowles has put out some defensive masterpieces. He has. He's capable of doing that.
Absolutely.
And I think what we've seen, whether it's against a crap team like the New York Giants or, a playoff caliber team, say what you want about the Chargers. They're a playoff caliber team. Went to the playoffs last year. When Bowles has a lead, he gets in his bag and good things usually happen. Right. And those games, plus you can throw in the Saints game too, which was really fluky in the first half.
Yeah.
Some of those interceptions. Remember, the Saints actually led at halftime of that game in New Orleans. But then the Buccaneers ended up dropping a 50 burger on him because Bowles' defense came alive in the second half, got some takeaways, I think shut him out. The offense came to life, ran wild. So that's my point is when you have a lead for Bowles, the Bucs defense, regardless of injuries or lack of personnel, whatever, like they can turn it on. So now if you have a healthier secondary, a healthier defense with more talent that have the ability to take away the ball more often because of more ball hawks, if you have all those factors in this year and Josh Grizzard and that offense can get some similar leads, I think you're going to have more blowouts. In other words, the frequency of games where the Buccaneers win by double digits increases. And then I think in some of those games, like the Washington game last year where it was close, where if the defense can just sometimes wear the superhero cape and the offense doesn't have to wear it, then I think that the defense can bail out the offense a couple of times. But I don't think the defense was capable of bailing out the offense last year. No, and that to me is why I said the offense deserves some of the blame in that Washington game, because at no point really did the Bucs defense act like a superhero last year. It was a sidekick. And so when the Bucs offense was not at superhero level and you're going up against good teams, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Ravens, you're not going to win because the Bucs defense was a sidekick. If this can be more like the Avengers or the X-Men, where you've got multiple superheroes on offense and defense, then I think your chances of winning increase, because the offense has a bad day. Even if it's in the playoffs, you can survive that as long as you have a superhero defense, not a sidekick defense.
And to that point, another game I went back and watched was the Detroit Lions win.
Yeah.
And the thing that jumped off the screen there was the guy wearing number 8. Yeah. And that's Servassier Dennis. And remember the play. What's it? Yeah. And remember the play he makes on, I think it was Jamar Gibbs.
Yep.
Or he actually is, and it's in the red zone where they crushed Detroit. That was where they won that game defensively in the red zone. I think they were 1 for 7. And he actually is on across almost on the other hash, the far hash. Yeah. At the snap, he has to shift over to the left side of the formation defensively, and they're running a screen to the other side. He comes across the field, and it gets there so quickly and explosively that Frank Ragnow, who's out front, doesn't even see him because he's coming from behind and caps Jameer. And it was the play of the play of the game. It forced the fourth down. I mean, And I'm like, yeah, J.J. Russell ain't making that play.
No.
52 ain't
making it. Vi Jones isn't making it.
No. And all throughout, and he made a bunch of those.
You know what?
Plays.
Levante David's not making it either.
No.
Yeah.
Like at age 34/35, he's a very good player. You want Levante David on your team as opposed to not having him on your team. But Servacio Dennis has the chance because of the youth in any Bucs linebacker. Levante David, Derek Brooks, Hardy Nickerson, Shelton Quarles. Some of the best will tell you football's a young man's game.
Yep.
Right? Speed kills in the NFL. It always has. It always will. And Servacio Dennis has the opportunity to be, and we'll see where his ceiling is. I mean, can he be another Levante David? I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe he will. Yep. But you know what? If he is a Shelton Quarles, like circa 2002, when he was the middle linebacker for the Bucs Super Bowl team, or like in some years, like an upper echelon when Mason Foster was playing his best, or Barrett Ruud when they were playing at their best. I'm not saying season-long Barrett Ruud or season-long Mason Foster, but a couple of those high-end performances, if Servacio Dennis can hit that mark and be another Shelton Quarles for this team,
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a huge addition.
Oh, and by the way, if he's the next Derek Brooks or Levante David or Hardy Nickerson, by all means. Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that too. And I think the big one of the other things, speaking defensively, is, and we've talked about this a little bit, but we think there's going to be more changes defensively, scheme-wise, and I think it's going to be dramatic, to be quite honest. I think we're going to see a much more aggressive team from the corners. Todd's talked about this. Yeah. And I think with Benjamin Morrison especially, and Jacob Parrish, both of these guys they were drafted for a reason, is because they can play press and they can get after you, and they're physical guys. Yeah. And
I think that's going to, it's another thing going back and looking at those games. The one thing I think Zion can be physical at times, but these two guys are different. They're wired differently than Dean and Zion, who I think are good players. And I think Zion could be a really great player in this league. But these other two guys are just kind of different cats. They're built different. They're thick. They're strong. They're fast. They're quick, and they're aggressive. And I think that's going to help this team dramatically. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I love Zion, and I'm not here to disparage Zion, a friend of the program. He's been on our show a couple times. I really like Zion as a player and a person. Yep. And we've had some conversations about certain things. And if you look at like Xavier Worthy, okay, number 1 draft pick, fastest dude in the NFL, Zion McCollum erased him on Monday night. I mean, I don't even think he got a target or two. Maybe I think he had 1 catch for like a couple yards. But Zion just absolutely erased him. Zion is an athlete. He's also a football player too. I'm not going to say he's not. But the bigger, more physical receivers, you think like CeeDee Lamb. Remember that where he kind of got big boyed by CeeDee on that deep catch and on Sunday night against the Cowboys.
Cowgirls.
Juwan Jennings. I thought Juwan Jennings really out-physicaled him, outboxed him. The 49ers game was probably Zion's worst last year. And CeeDee has some speed. Juwan Jennings is not. Juwan Jennings was an undrafted free agent because the dude runs like a 4.65 or 4.7. Yeah. But he's just a scrappy, physical, yards after catch. He's a tackle-breaking receiver is really what he is. He's a little bit of a unicorn. And I know like Deebo Samuel and all them got the headlines. I mean, last year, Juwan Jennings had 77 catches for 975 yards and 8 touchdowns. That was second behind George Kittle. He had more catches and targets than Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, Ayuk was injured.
And his average per catch was nice too. Yeah, because he got the yak. He's a good player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 12.7 yards. So my point is Zion, I think, struggles against the more physical, bigger type of wide receivers. Like, for example, maybe this is the year the Bucs play A.J. Brown in Philly, right?
Let's hope not.
Well, I know, but the last 2 games have been blowouts in the Bucs' favor, and not having A.J. Brown is one of those reasons. And if Zion is going up against A.J. Brown, that's going to be a real test for Zion. That's going to be a real test because he's a big, fast, physical DK Metcalf type receiver, and we'll see how he fares against them. But yeah, I generally speaking, I agree with everything you're saying. I think this defense has the chance. The secondary, to play more press man, to be more physical. They have the horses to do it. They just have to kind of do it. And one thing I do like is there's more talent there, because I think last year we saw whether Zion in some certain instances or Jamel give up a little too much cushion, much to what the coaches didn't want to see. That wasn't the game plan. Go play 7 yards off. The problem is when Jamel, gets burned on a play and then he gets like a little gun shy, a little shell shocked, and he starts to play back and give more cushion, right? Because maybe that knee's like tweaking a little bit or whatever, and he doesn't feel like it's comfortable, whatever. Maybe Zion's dealing with something, whatever. The problem is the coaches, I hate to say it, the coaches were kind of, there's nothing they could do about it. What are they going to do? Jamel, you're coming out and putting Josh Hayes in. Nobody wants to see Josh Hayes play defense. Really?
Well, your players have to do what you tell them to do. I mean, if they're not,
but my point is,
on the coaching.
What's the consequence? What's the consequence?
Well, the
consequence is
I know there needs to be consequence, but other than, can I not just say, hey, if you want your guys in press and they're not doing press, yeah, I know the only thing you could do is take them out, but can't we just get them to, or be better coaches? Like, I'm sorry, like if you can't get a guy to press when you want him to press, that's bad coaching.
Of course it is.
Whatever your method is, whether you got it.
We had Todd Bowles on our podcast. I asked him this question. He's like, I didn't want to see them play that much cushion. I didn't want that. But now what you do, exactly, you fix it. How do you fix it? You get players that you can turn to. All right, Jamel, you're out.
Or you get the guys that are in there to do the right thing. That's part of coaching too.
But when there's a huge talent gap, right?
I understand.
Are you going to take out Jamel Dean and put in Tyreek Funderburk? We saw how that worked. We saw how Josh Hayes worked. Bryce Hall, loved the guy. He broke his fibula or whatever in the first week, right? So here's a case in point. Remember how Rachaad White tiptoed and danced in the hole, right, in 2023? And we're kind of like, man, like this guy, he has to run with a sense of urgency, right? And he's averaging 2.5 yards, 3 yards a carry, right? Well, they drafted Bucky Irving, and Bucky Irving is in training camp. And Rachaad, of course, he's the starter last year, and he's tiptoeing through the holes, and he's, not accelerating, not getting the second level, whatever, spending too much time reading the blocks, being a little passive, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, when he comes over to Skip Pete, the running backs coach, and I saw this like firsthand in training camp practices last year, and Skip puts his arm around him and says, now watch Bucky hit the hole, all right? And Bucky hits the hole because Bucky didn't have like breakaway speed,
right?
But he has instant acceleration. He gets through the hole. And then he says, all right, now, Rachaad, I want you to go out there and do that. And then all of a sudden, boom, what happens? Yeah, better run blocking for sure. But all of a sudden, Rachaad gets 4.7 yards per carry, which is about a yard below Bucky, right? But still, like 4.7 yards a carry. Pretty good. 4.3, whatever it was. Big time improvement. Yeah. Because if he didn't do it the right way, he's going to get less opportunities because there's somebody on the sideline who's willing to do it, who's just as good, if not better.
Yeah, I understand how it
now
works.
The Bucs, and I'm not making excuses. I mean, I've had conversations on and off the record with a lot of people, and it's like, listen, I love Jason Light. He's the best general manager in team history. He knows he didn't do enough in terms of depth last year, and it came back to bite this team in certain areas. Wide receiver was one, even though they drafted Jalen McMillan, and cornerback was the other. And you know what? Todd and Jason both wanted Tyreek Funderburk on the team, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's both of their faults. The problem is this cat deserved to be on the practice squad. He was not ready for primetime. He was not, and he's not going to make the team this year.
Yeah.
Okay? But yet he was starting a couple games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Hayes will make the team as cornerback number 6 because he's an elite gunner. He is a Ryan Smith type cornerback who is a special teams demon. You need guys like that. But you don't want them at cornerback 3. You want them at cornerback 6. It's where he belongs on the depth chart.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, you want to jump in here?
Oh no, I got nothing more. I mean, Scott's has covered everything for us: the defense, the offense,
well,
goals. But I mean,
we haven't talked about the contract extensions for
that was gonna be my question, Scott. We talked about it on the show here about why we think Todd got an extension, and I wrote and I did a podcast on not because he deserved it, not because it was a reward for past performance, but JP and I postulated that it was more just to keep the continuity going and so that there was no distraction of a talk about his contract status through 2025 like we had with the Cowboys last year with Mike McCarthy that turned into a complete disaster here in Dallas because that's all anybody talked about all year. And Jason Light, of course, and the Glazers preach continuity, consistency, and ambiguity, and just it's all out on the table with there in Tampa, unlike here in Dallas. And that's why I think he got an extension, not because he's being
smart.
rewarded.
I think it's smart by the Glazers.
It's very smart. Yes,
you just remove that talking point. Nobody's going to talk about it now, and I think that's super smart. And I think Todd deserved it to some degree, obviously.
Yeah,
but I mean, more than anything, the analogy and the comparison to what happened in Dallas last year is spot on. You don't want that.
Correct. You don't want that. I do know that Glazers were incredibly frustrated. I mean, even with Pewter Report to a degree, because I think we've tried to call it like we see it, right? I mean, at 4-6. 2 years in a row, like it wasn't looking good, like, I mean, we're just being honest. We take the approach about an entire season is we're going to take your picture each week, each Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night, whatever. We're going to take your picture. And if it's a great picture, we'll let you know, hey man, this is a great picture. If you're making a funny face in the picture and it's not very good, we're going to write about it. We're going to talk about it. Right. The great thing is if you don't like the picture, you have a chance to do a retake the next week. And maybe that picture's better, right? So, and then we look at all the pictures at the end of the season and we say, hey, there were more great pictures than bad pictures here, right? And that's just kind of how we assess it. But yeah, I think that the Glazers are all in on Todd Bowles. I wrote about this in my SR's Fab 5 last week. I mean, all in. Like, all in.
Yeah.
They love Todd. Remember, and this is very important, and I don't think other outlets have maybe talked about it like we have a Pewter Report. I think it's hugely important to understand. They had a chance to keep the shiny new toy in Liam Cohen if they wanted. They had the chance right there to say, gosh, you know what? Looking at this season, wow, Liam's offense wore the superhero cape all season. They were the reason why we won 10 games. And Todd, boy, your defense didn't really show up in the playoffs. No forced punts, no takeaways. It's kind of been a season-long issue. Yeah, you've had some injuries, but we're going to hit the ejection seat button on you, and we're gonna do the swap, and we're going to go that direction. And they've kind of done that in the past with John Gruden for Tony Dungy, different circumstances, of course. They've kind of done that to a degree with Raheem Morris and John Gruden, because Raheem was like the next Mike Tomlin, right? And I think that wisdom, which comes with age, and this is my 30th year covering the team. It's also the 30th year that Glazers have been in ownership. We both came in 95. I think wisdom has set in and said, wow, the last time we did this, we did this twice. We got rid of the legend in Tony Dungy, and we had the Hail Mary. We got John Gruden, and we won the Super Bowl the next year. Malcolm could do no wrong, right? Well, they tried that again with John Gruden and Raheem Morris.
Yeah.
And that set upon a decade of darkness, which the Glazers get credit for getting the Bucs out of a previous decade of darkness, like 13 years or 14, whatever it was, with, firing Sam Weish after 95, hiring Tony Dungy, all of a sudden playoffs in 97, and you have a playoff caliber, Super Bowl caliber team for a while. John Gruden comes in. They have the ups and the downs with Gruden, but John Gruden's still the all-time winningest coach in Tampa Bay history. And they thought they could do it again, and it blew up in their face. They didn't make the playoffs. They had, 2 seasons with winning records? 10-6 with Josh Freeman at quarterback, and then a 9-7 under Dirk Cutter, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. So I think that they understand patience now. And leadership of men is important.
Absolutely.
This locker room, and I'm telling you this, Buccaneer fans, the God's honest truth. I've covered the Tony Dungy era in its totality, the John Gruden era in its totality, and the Bruce Arians era in its totality. Those are the three best coaches in franchise history. Say what you want about John McKay. There's a lot of losing there. Yes, he brought this team up in 97. I'm not trying to crap on John McKay, but it's like John McKay is like way down fourth on the list compared to those three guys.
He wanted to execute his offense.
He had a 3-year run. That was
sure.
it.
Yeah. And it was a different era.
Yeah.
He was handicapped with, an expansion franchise. I get all that.
I mean, NFC Championship game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was remarkable given the fact there was no free agency back then. So I'm not crapping on him. But what I'm saying, though, is looking at the number of wins, the winning percentage, all of that.
Those are the three best.
Those are the three best.
Sure. Yeah.
This locker room is tighter, better camaraderie, better chemistry, all rowing in the same direction under Todd Bowles than it ever did under Arians or Gruden or Dungy. And there's something to be said for that. Because when you mix in talent and team unity and chemistry, eventually, and if you throw in some luck too, with injuries, that is the recipe for a championship. I mean, you can say what you want about who won the Super Bowl, Tony's team, Gruden's offense, Monty's defense.
He's all part of it.
Tom Brady, Shaq Barrett, Todd Bowles. The common denominator in both of those Super Bowls was health. The most marquee player on injured reserve in 2002 was the nose tackle Booger McFarland.
Booger.
That was it.
And if you asked Monty Kiffin, may he rest in peace, to rank all of the 11 starters from most important, number one, which is the under tackle Warren Sapp. Number two would be weak side linebacker Derek Brooks in terms of position.
Right.
The value of the positions. Number three would be strong safety John Lynch, because that was a thing back in the day, that enforcer across the middle. Nose tackle is probably down there 10 or 11. It's like with strong side linebacker. That's just the value of it. So when the most important player, most important piece is your nose tackle, and you got by with the Chuck and Buck show, Buck Gurley and Chartry Darby filled in. You didn't miss Booger. I mean, ask Rich Gannon. And then in the Super Bowl season, who was the most
Booger
injured
watches
player there?
the show.
I love Booger, but I'm keeping it real, right? I mean, that's why you had me on.
He had his moments, but that wasn't one of them.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
He was injured reserve. But then,
point being, this is a great chemistry. Those teams were healthy, and they need to be healthy.
In the 2002, Alex Kappa, the right guard, was the other guy. He was the most marquee guy in injured reserve. The second guy was like the third tight end, O.J. Howard, behind Gronk and Cam Brate. So these two teams were incredibly healthy Buccaneer teams that won the Super Bowl. That can't go unnoticed. So, the Buccaneers, hey, I think we're all probably agreeing that the Buccaneers have 3 Super Bowls. If Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin are available, not even AB, he pieced out. But I'm saying, you give me Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs against the Rams in 2021. The Buccaneers win that game.
I agree.
They represent the NFC. They beat the Bengals, and they have back-to-back Super Bowl championships.
I agree.
So we'll see what happens. They have to have injuries, but I'm with you. I think this is a Super Bowl caliber team, and I think Todd Bowles deserves the contract extension. And the other thing too is,
I think he deserves it, but I do think a lot of it is let's take that issue off the table.
Let's remove any heat. His seat is ice cold. He's not on the hot seat. But I think the other thing too is the timing of this. This was after Todd Bowles voluntarily made necessary changes to the coaching staff. Got a game day management guy voluntarily. And tweaked his defense. And then after the draft, where he insisted on getting ball hawks and saying, hey, we're not going to have 7 interceptions again. I'll be damned. And he's said and done all of the right things this offseason. And some of the things that he's done, I've criticized him for. So I have to give him credit now. And I want to give him credit. I'm happy to give him credit for fixing some of those things, because they need to be fixed. And so, I think now is the right time. Like, hey, Todd, you did everything you could this offseason to become better as a head coach, a defensive coordinator, and get our roster better. And
how much is he making? You know everything. How much is he making?
I don't know that. I don't know that. No, I don't. No, I mean, he was the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league.
Yeah.
After winning the Super Bowl, the Bucs have done that twice.
The word on the street was he was making $3 million last year, or in the last contract.
That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. When Kirby Smart's making 12, like how the hell does that work?
That's college, JP.
A lot more than I.
Where did we go? How did it happen? Like, remember, like college coaches like would make half of what. Now these guys are making way more.
Well, college coaches used to have the entire offseason to golf and just do
they got
spring
no
golf for like 2 weeks. Now
they work a lot harder than NFL
year-round recruiting and
roster
management, and it's a friggin' mess, man.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah,
all right, Scotty, tell everybody how they can get your great content. What are you guys even talking about right now?
What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about our boldest takes.
Our boldest takes.
All right. Pewter Report podcast at 4:00.
Are you already talking about the possibility of Josh Grizzard moving on as a head coach next year?
I heard you guys talking the other day about Josh Grizzard. Well, he might be the next head coach.
You can't, Tim. You can't put that out there.
It's already being
Don't speak it into the existence, man.
It's already being discussed. This is way too early for this. I don't have time.
Hey,
somebody asked which missing ring hurts more, 99 or 21?
Ooh.
Oh,
wow.
79. What about 79?
79.
Yeah, that's the count.
That's a missing ring too.
We were lucky to get
the interesting thing about 79 was they lost the NFC Championship game here in Tampa. So that
to the Rams, right?
Yeah, there's a sting in that you lost it on your home turf.
And the way we lost it.
In the sombrero.
Yeah, the Ricky Prohl touchdown against the Rams was really tough.
That was pretty bad.
And the
Herculean effort by the defense.
Catch by
the Bert Emanuel catch.
Bert Emanuel. Yeah. That would because we go into that Super Bowl and just it was the Titans, right? The Titans that the Rams beat. Yeah. We crushed them.
Scott, best greatest quarterback in the history of the Bucs, not named Tom Brady. Please say Brad Johnson.
Baker Mayfield.
Well, already.
Wow. Okay, wait. Here's the thing.
I'm not disagreeing. I just didn't think of his name. Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're drafting the team right now and Tom Brady's off the board, who are you drafting to be the Buccaneer quarterback in 2025?
Like of all the quarterbacks available right now or that are playing right now?
All of the Buccaneer quarterbacks that have ever played.
Oh, Buccaneer quarterbacks.
Right
Steve Young. That's
okay.
Steve Spurrier.
That didn't count.
Just blew up my own question with the
smart ass.
I deserved it. You got
it. You did. You didn't know. I'm an old guy. I remember stuff like that.
You're
but after him, there's no.
There's a reason he got traded to San Francisco, right?
There's a picture of me and Brad Johnson on the wall over here when we're both like 12 years old. So there's no way that I can say Baker Mayfield. Until I get a picture with Baker Mayfield.
I love the Bull, but just like for example, like if John Lynch were to be drafted into this day and age in the NFL, he's not a Hall of Famer because John Lynch's hits and his
they're all illegal.
They're illegal, and it just his reputation, the presence. How many non-catches happened because of people being fearful about John Lynch drilling?
Oh, they didn't even run the plays. They didn't run the plays.
Exactly.
Like
so,
Middle's closed.
He had such an impact with his hits and also just his reputation
and his run support. I mean, it was like
no doubt. Except against Barry Sanders, and John would tell you that.
When Vinny Testaverde played in Dallas, we called him Vinny Interceptaverde.
Yeah. That's certainly
no. I think Baker. It's funny.
The reason I say Baker is because of the leadership, the moxie.
Yeah.
He's more of a prolific passer. Where Brad Johnson. Here's the thing: if you put Brad Johnson in this offense, I'm not sure he's successful. I'm not sure he's as successful in this offense as Baker Mayfield is.
But man, him and Gruden had something together, though.
They did.
I don't know.
They did. But if you take Baker
with
Mayfield,
those weapons and Brad's arm
Mayfield and put him back in the 2002 team, I think he's just as effective as Brad Johnson was.
Yeah,
and I love Brad.
I'm not disagreeing with you. That's just not a name that I'm
going with Brad.
My head.
I'm going with Brad.
Okay.
The intangibles.
It has nothing to do with your Florida State allegiances.
Nothing.
Nothing to do with that.
All right, JP.
These garnet gold glasses are not what you think they are.
Exactly.
Not what you think you are.
When Baker wins the Super Bowl with the Bucs, will he supplant Brad?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Well, and also yesterday I was watching Ronnie Barber's show, and they were going through all the quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he was saying Baker or
like Tua or Baker or Justin Herbert. Yeah. I would take Baker.
Oh, absolutely.
He said Baker over Justin Herbert, which most people wouldn't do, but I agree.
Yep.
He said Baker over Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
In terms of,
I would do that. Yes.
Yeah. In terms of passing, yes.
And leadership.
Well, no, we have to take the whole enchilada. And I would take Baker too, but that's a tough one.
Jalen Hurts is not a leader of men.
Here's the thing: if you put Baker and Jalen Hurts, if you put Baker in the Philly offense, I think Baker is just as successful. It might look a little different, but I think he's just as successful.
So you're in the camp that he can win the MVP then?
Yeah,
Baker, because there's a lot of people like, no, he can't win it just because that's not what the NFL does. He's not a bona fide star. He's got too many
trophy winner.
I know, but I hear all this and I'm like,
draft pick.
He's got the name recognition. He really does.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not Tom Brady, right, in terms of Bucs quarterbacks, but
last year his numbers were MVP.
Exactly.
They were
just because he's played for 4 teams and 30 offensive coordinators.
Yeah,
he
finished 11th. My God.
Well, I'll say this: the problem with the Buccaneers last year, and I think it impacted Pro Bowl voting across the board. I think it impacted Baker Mayfield, is they didn't show up in prime time.
Yeah. Yes.
I think the most important game on the Bucs schedule, believe it or not, is Week 2 and Houston. It's the most important because here's the thing: if you go to Atlanta and you beat the Falcons, get revenge, and you take care of business in Houston, you're 2-0 heading into the Jets game, which is winnable at home with a chance to be 3-0. And that's a great start.
Well,
anybody would take that. But if you lose in Week 1 and you lose in Week 2, I'm not saying it's over, but what I'm saying is it's a situation where you really have to get on a run because 0-2 is bad. The other thing too is because the Bucs were 0-5 in primetime last year, including the Commodes game in the playoffs, you better win that game and get that narrative dead and buried. Otherwise, it's now they're 0-6 against, in primetime games. So there's a reason why. And if the Bucs can win that game in Houston and do it like in grandiose style, what I'm talking about is like, see what happened last year in LA against the Chargers, have that type of game in Week 2. And all of a sudden, especially if the Buccaneers win in Week 1 at 1:00 against the Falcons, right? That's not a national primetime game, but that game's going to be talked about. The outcome of that game is going to be talked about a lot heading into that Monday night game. Either Buccaneers have a chance to go 2-0, or the Buccaneers need to bounce back from last week's loss at Atlanta. They've lost 3 straight to the Falcons, whatever. If Baker blows up on Monday night in Week 2 and the Buccaneers get a win, that is an early momentum push. That's got to be continued against the Lions, against the Rams. Every primetime game, Baker needs to show up and show out. Then, if he does that, then he goes head-to-head against last year's MVP winner in Buffalo. And if he plays even or has a better game than Josh Allen, that's how he can really get in the conversation. I mean, not like top 11. I'm saying like top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Where it's like Mahomes, Baker, and Lamar. Like if you can get in that conversation, then the stats kind of matter. Oh, and by the way, then you have the whole nation watching the creamsicle game, Week 15 at the end of the season on Thursday night, only game in town to put the exclamation point on your MVP candidacy. So
and you're going to be wearing a creamsicle uniform. Jesus.
And the key to beating Houston in Week 2 is on Todd Bowles, because it's going to depend if he's got this newish defense and these young defensive players and Hassan Reddick. If he can get that defense to click by Week 2, that the Houston offensive line is horrible. Nick Caserio spent $75 million 2 years ago on the offensive line, and now Kenyon Green is gone because he sucked and he was hurt. Laramie Tunsil is gone. Their offensive line is horrible. So get pressure on Stroud, and he's going to look like a sophomore in college again.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, Scotty. Thank you for your time. As usual, appreciate you. Pewter Report all day, all week, everywhere. You know where to get it. Thanks, partner.